Ali actually had this model where he said, if you young people, if you manage to launch a profitable project within these 2 weeks or 4 weeks, I invite you to even donate some of your profit to my nonprofit so that I can go to the next university. So what Ali did is he gave this money to these young people at the bottom of the pyramid, and they paid him back more than he had given them within 4 weeks. It completely blew my mind, and it was on such a scale that I thought, how does he do that? It's not a loan. He doesn't tell people, oh, you pay me 10% interest or anything. He makes it risk free. He tells them, if I give you this money and you don't succeed, you don't owe me anything. But if I give you this money and you succeed, then you give me back the money I gave you.
Hey guys, and welcome to the CEO After Dark show, even though today it's more like the CEO Before Lunch show because we are recording quite early. Today I have with me Thomas Jakel, a serial entrepreneur from Germany, a genuinely cool person, I would say, that's having a big impact in the world. He's what you would call an impact-driven entrepreneur. And we're going to talk about a lot of things. I'm curious to know what made Thomas become an impact-driven entrepreneur, how his journey took him to where he is today, and hopefully extract some insights for you guys also to learn from what he did well and perhaps avoid the mistakes that he did on the way. Thomas, thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me, George.
What are you working on these days? Can you perhaps introduce yourself?
Yeah, happy to. So as you said, I'm working on several projects. I call them project because to me, well, it's a project. I don't define impact necessarily by how much revenue you do here or there. So I just refer to all the projects and businesses to projects. And one of these projects is an ecological toilet company. So we're building public toilets, composting toilets, where we can recycle, compost the feces, and then it's for circular economy, essentially to save water, but also I think it's the future of sanitation. We also have a nonprofit that's related to that. We haven't done much with it recently, and we used it to build ecological toilets in Namibia, in India, usually through partners, in Ghana, school toilets. So I'm working around this toilet field, ecological sanitation. Then the other thing that I'm very passionate about is inner work, mental health. How can you find more peace and joy in life, more resilience within yourself? How can you start to notice the abundance around yourself more? Then also for many very successful people, just saying this like the outward success, a lot of them are quite stressed. They have either this feeling that they're an imposter somehow, or they compare themselves to the next person, and it's never enough. So there's always this, or quite often, the sense of lack. Actually, even though for someone looking from the outside, they're living in complete abundance. So I find this very interesting. How can we get into more peace and joy within ourselves? So that's where I work within myself, of course, because you have to practice what you preach and teach to others. And then I also like to share that through coaching. And then there's a nonprofit that I work with. It's called Yes Founders Foundation. Actually, was an inspiration from this one guy in Pakistan. And we give like small micro funds to young people right now, mostly in Zimbabwe. And these young people then start to come up with ideas and launch projects within a very short amount of time. And for me, it's an educational process. And what we tell them is that if you manage to launch a project within 2 weeks and you generate some revenue and profit, then pay us back the money that we gave you so we can pay it forward and go to the next school, the next community project, and again, involve young people. So this hundreds of young people have been in this program in Zimbabwe. And then my mentor in Pakistan, who came up with this, he has done this with over 20,000 young people. And over 80% of these young people manage to actually start a project. We give them $25, and then they come up with an idea, they launch a project within 2 weeks, and they pay us back the money that we gave them. And to me, that's like total, I like
This is
this. There's a
incredible.
new paradigm around it. Yeah, for me, the paradigm is it's part of the human mind to be creative, and anyone that receives that trust oftentimes from someone else, I think there's a high likelihood that we can express ourselves as creators and not just as consumers. So yeah, that's something that I'm very passionate about. And again, for me, it's also linked to inner work, because these young people, they change their perspective from maybe thinking, okay, someone else has to give me a job, or there are not so many opportunities, to then stepping out and creating their own opportunities, offering products and services within their community. And it just changes something in your mind if you think, I can actually do something about my situation. And this is like a learning vehicle, but it has
Yeah.
direct impact, a direct benefit for them, because they make some money as well on the way. Then there is this virtual assistant company that is actually providing me with most of my cash flow, so that I can do all the other fun things, do the consulting and all of this, and the other things are ramping up. Yeah,
I think this is how it started, right? Like with the virtual assistant company. That's how you
yeah, yeah,
got into entrepreneurship. How did you start? Tell us the story.
yeah. So first, actually, I went to university, study business to learn how to start a business, and I noticed I got absolutely zero knowledge around how to start a business through university. So I was like, I would call it 3 years of time waste, but it's not true, because I met some amazing people on that way, and I learned, well, that's not the way that you learn how to do things. You learn how to do things by imitating other people that actually do things, and then just trying it, like
Yeah.
come up with an offer, launch it, and do that. So after university, I first tried to get some grants to buy myself some time to start my business. That didn't work out. I went back to work in an internship to gather up some money, and I remember it was 2009. And during my internship, I thought, okay, if I don't do something now, maybe I will never, make the leap to start a business. So in the lunch break, I went out and registered my business. I was like, okay, now I have it registered. That was the first step that I could see. I wouldn't recommend it to someone else. I think there's smarter ways to start a business than to just go out and register something, like to pilot your idea, for example. But for me, that was the one step. And I think psychologically that had an impact. And I had an idea that I wanted to do. I wanted to do like courses at private universities and private schools. But
Hmm.
then one of my friends and mentors, Basti, he asked me, hey, Tommy, do you want to join me in my business? And Basti was already my mentor. He had shared the 4 Hour Work Week, the book by Tim Ferriss, with me. And this book completely resonated with me. I thought, hey, this is all I want. If I make €1,000 every month and I'm not bound to a desk, I can be in Brazil, in India, in, Kenya, wherever I want to be. That's my dream life. I don't need that much money. I just want that lifestyle of freedom. Thank goodness now there's a little bit more money than that, but the goal was quite simple. So Basti shared that book with me. I just love the book. It really resonated with me, and he invited me to join his business. His partner that he launched the business with had jumped ship, so he was there alone. I think he was a bit overwhelmed at the time, and
Yeah.
I was super happy to work with him and to learn from him. And yeah, that was my step into business, actually, through that partnership with Basti.
And how? I mean, I know that this business was one of the first of its kind. Like this was way ahead of its time, right? Like
Yeah,
I believe in Germany, it
yeah,
was probably the first uh,
yeah, yeah,
remote assistance type of company. So that worked well. I understand why it worked well. You guys obviously did a good job also. But then, how did you go from this, which is at least the way I understand it, it's like kind of a cash flow business that it does solve
yeah,
a problem, right? But it's not what you would call like an impact driven company. How did you go from
yeah,
this to doing something like, I don't know, the Yes Founders Foundation, which is much more, I guess, about the mission rather than
yeah,
it's a business that serves a purpose, of course, but there's no higher purpose behind it. At least that's my maybe there is, and I'm wrong, but at least my assumption is that it's a different type of mindset that led you to those latest projects.
Yeah. So I had read this 4 Hour Work Week book, right? And after some time with working on this Stranschicht business, this virtual assistant business with Basti, we were able to automate it. So we wrote down all the procedures for the employees to take over the business because we noticed we had reached our income goals back then, but we were working like 60 hours a week or something. There was still a lot of work. So we noticed, okay, we are not really a 4 hour work week business just yet, you know. So we said, okay, let's set a deadline. Let's document everything and hand it over to the team so we get our time back, which would then really complete our mission of lifestyle freedom, I would say. So we did that, and then I flew to Brazil for 6 months. Basti did his own projects, and the business now only required like 10 hours a week from my side and maybe his side. Yeah, and for me that was like I think 25 at the time. I thought, great, I'm in Brazil. I'm basically retired. The business almost works on its own. I love that. You know, so I was doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, learning Portuguese, traveling around the country. I had a fun time. And at the same time, I noticed quite quickly that just doing that forever would be totally pointless. That's senseless, you know, to me at least.
Yeah.
It could feel empty quite quickly. And I had done my civil service in Honduras working with young people. So this desire to do something impactful, meaningful was already there. And now it became more about for me it became more about, okay, how can I use the skills that I have just learned in business to do something with more impact. And there were two things to it. One, I thought, why didn't I learn about entrepreneurship and about actually, you know, creating your own ideal lifestyle as you see fit for yourself? Why didn't I learn that in university? Why did I study business but I came out completely clueless about how to do anything essentially, you know, except maybe to work in banking and to do consulting. So that was one thing for me, like this educational thing I was passionate
Yeah.
about. And then the other thing, I had read a book by Muhammad Yunus about microloans. So I was also interested in that. And then I think during this time in Brazil, what I took away is was what I took away was that I want to learn how to how to become a social entrepreneur, how to start a social business and generate revenue through activities that I think are benefiting others, the planet, yeah, and the world. So I think there was first this desire to do that. And then somehow the opportunities presented themselves when I came back from Brazil. Basti told me, hey, there are some other guys here. They want to come together and start like an educational business. We want to teach other young people how to come up with business ideas, launch their business, not the stuff that we learned in university, you know, but how to actually launch something, pilot
In the
something
real
within a
world.
very short amount of time. Yeah, the Idea Camp, that was the business we started. And you know, so that kind of came to me. I was invited to join the project again, you know, and it was actually my first time that I started to learn marketing myself, because at Stranschicht, Basti had done all the initial marketing. He had ramped up the huge hype around our virtual assistant company. And with this new business, you know, I started to write blog posts, do outreach, and drive traffic to our website. And actually, the first people signed up for our workshops through measures like these. So yeah, and then, you know, we actually didn't know much about how to start a business. We thought we did, you know, but we just didn't know how much we don't know at the time. But again, like, you start teaching people and being authentic, of course, like, this is what we did, and I think we can help you, you know. And then you learn more and more, oh, their situation is a bit different. And through these conversations, I learned a ton about business, about other startup ideas, about how you could pilot them, and of course consuming a ton of books, but then this practical work with like hundreds of young entrepreneurs and listening to what they wanted to do and thinking about, okay, how can you build an MVP overnight, you know. It just blew my mind, and it was really the real business education then, you know, through trying to help others do that while being authentic and saying, I don't know everything, but I know that part,
Yeah.
you know. Let's see how we can use that for you. So that, I think that already drove me in the direction of wanting to have an impact, like in the education space and helping people. um, and then the second thing is, Basti and I, we flew to India. You know, he found one of these aerofares online, so cheap flight for 200 euros to India and back. Um, and when I came back to Germany, I thought, I looked at Google Maps, Germany to India, and I came up with this idea. Hey, I think I want to take a bicycle and cycle from Germany to India. That would be crazy nice. And it just felt so inspired to me. And then it sort of clicked in my mind. I think no one else will understand, but to me, it made total sense that I have to cycle from Germany to India and raise funds for a social project that we can then implement in India, which could eventually turn into the social business. And I think, yeah, when I tell that to people, they were like, okay, that's not very straightforward thinking.
Yeah, yeah.
But to me, it was crystal clear. This is what has to happen. Yeah, so we then cycled to India. The project that we wanted to do became about toilets, about ecological sanitation. I had read a case study that like millions of people didn't have access to toilets in India. So I thought, okay, toilets, that's probably something that you can eventually build a business around. You can build toilets, sell toilets, rent toilets, probably teach other people through courses how to do ecological toilets. So yeah, then it became this whole thing. And again, like I know very little about anything. So I always try to get experts and people that know more than me or that are field experts and try to partner with them. So that's what I did in that case as well. And yeah, we built a nice little team of people that are fascinated by toilets and ecological sanitation. And then first implemented this nonprofit project in India, and then eventually that became a for-profit business in Germany, or we started this for-profit company in Germany.
Sorry, what's the difference between the German company and the Indian company? Like, do they
Yeah.
do the same thing? It's just
So
that, yeah.
no, they don't. Like when we cycled to India, we set up a nonprofit to raise funds. But actually, we didn't have the tax exempt nonprofit status back then. So we did a partnership with the other nonprofit. They called the German Toilet Organization. So they were actually collecting the funds for us, doing all the admin stuff. My job was actually just to cycle. I think maybe from the outside it looked like, oh, Thomas is building this whole project, but literally I just said, hey, I'm cycling to India and I need some help. I want to build toilets in India. I didn't do much of the work. Someone else did the documentary. This organization, they collected the funds for us, did all this admin work. And I think sometimes my position is just to be a cheerleader. I like to have an idea and then tell everyone that it's easy to do that and we should do that. And anyone that wants to come on board, then it might become a project. It might also not. In that case, it became a project. So yeah, that was this nonprofit. And then when we arrived in India and we had built these toilets again through an Indian NGO, that's when we started thinking, okay, how can we make this financially sustainable? And we thought, okay, we're not residents in India, so let's think about business models for Germany. We can still have this nonprofit in India, and then we can use the for-profit to make donations to the nonprofit, do all our social things and ecological things with the nonprofit, but build a for-profit business, and that we started in Germany. Yeah,
And what about the Yes Founders Fund? I think that came later, right?
that came
Yes Founders
later. Yeah,
Foundation.
so in around 2015, 2016, I told you about the Idea Camp, this workshop company where we tried to teach other
Yes.
people how to start a business. That was great learning. It was great fun, and at some point, I didn't feel that my heart was in it anymore. It became very much about doing these small workshops, but I really became curious around how can we have a paradigm shift? How can we have a broader impact? And I thought that doing these workshops in Germany is it has an impact for the people that attend, but won't change the education system. It doesn't. Um, yeah, it doesn't lead to a paradigm shift. And also within the team, there were some dynamics where I thought, okay, I love these guys, and at the same time, it's probably best if I step out because I don't give it my all. I could see that. I noticed that. Um, so I said, okay, let me give my shares back to this business. I just want to go out. I just want out, and at the same time, this entrepreneurship education and just change maker education, that's what I would call it, was still fascinating to me. And I thought, okay, let me have a look at what other people are doing. During that time, I traveled to South Africa. I was visiting like social impact hubs, co-working spaces in Thailand, South Africa. I ordered a bunch of books, and in this one book, I forgot the name right now, but in the one book there was a foreword, and in that foreword, someone, the founder of Ashoka, which is like a big social impact organization, Bill Drayton,
Yeah.
he wrote about this change maker in Pakistan, and he essentially told Ali's story that there's this guy in Pakistan who has challenged over 20,000 young people to start projects with like $25, and over 80% pay him back. And Ali actually had this model where he said, if you young people, if you manage to launch a profitable project within these 2 weeks or 4 weeks, I invite you to even donate some of your profit to my nonprofit so that I can go to the next university. So what Ali did is he gave this money to these young people at the bottom of the pyramid, and they paid him back more than he had given them within 4 weeks. It completely blew my mind, and it was on such a scale that I thought, how does he do that? It's not a loan. He doesn't tell people, oh, you pay me 10% interest or anything. He makes it risk free. He tells them, if I give you this money and you don't succeed, you don't owe me anything. But if I give you this money and you succeed, then you give me back the money I gave you. Over 80%. I wish we had had that success rate with our startup weekend kind of company. So I reached out to him, just like you. I asked him to interview him, and he said, yeah, sure, let's have a call. So I drilled down deep. I wanted to know everything. And Ali is this very open-minded person. He's literally all about open sourcing his approach, like the secret that he has developed over 20 years. He just shared it openly with me on the call, and I asked him, Ali, I love that stuff. Can I visit you in Pakistan? He said, yeah, absolutely, sure, dude, come on over. So I booked a flight to Pakistan, and I just followed him around for 2 weeks. The most amazing host, he paid for all my hotels. It was unbelievable for me. And I asked him, how can I help you to do that, to replicate that? How can I be useful to you? You've been so inspiring, so sharing. And he said, you can help me write a book about this stuff. I said, okay, great. And because I had been following him so closely for 2 weeks, I recorded a bunch of his sessions, workshops at all these universities. So I started to write down what he had said to these young people. And then it was a back and forth and like a collaborative book writing. Yeah,
Yes.
and then we launched this book together. Yeah, and after that, I asked him, okay, can I share that with the rest of the world? And he said, absolutely, please do. So I sent the book to people. I gave it to one friend in Zimbabwe, and she came back to me and said, Thomas, I love that. I want to do that in my community. And yeah, then it just took on a life of its own.
That's incredible. And it's kind of incredible how you I don't, you didn't create this, but you opened yourself to be involved in it in a way. Like it's
Yeah.
very interesting how you reached out, you went there, you interacted with that person, you learned from that person, you spread the idea, and then the idea came back to you with kind of an opportunity to start something new. It's very interesting.
Yeah. And George, I think that a lot, if I look at what I'm currently involved in, what I'm doing, I don't think I came up with any of the ideas. I think I admire people. I want to work with them. I love what they're doing. And there's so many great ideas out there already that if we just amplify them and we distribute these great ideas, I think a lot of the challenges that maybe people are facing wouldn't be there. So I think a lot of, let me say, innovation is not about coming up with something new. And that's also valuable for sure, but distributing a solution to an area where it's not yet present, that is definitely also innovation in my perception. And I think even by someone's definition. I read that somewhere. So yeah, that's really what I enjoy doing, becoming a cheerleader for ideas that I personally love, that I think can be impactful.
It didn't start like that though, right? Like when you were just starting out, you had some income goals, some freedom goals. I
Yeah.
I assume that like something really made you change like your priorities, like something really transform how you saw things? Because it's very different to be seeing yourself as someone that ultimately wants to distribute good in the world than someone that wants to make a profit. And I'm not saying there's anything bad with wanting to make a profit. I want to make a profit. Most people want to make a profit, but it
Yeah,
seems
me
like
too.
there's this huge growth like within that happened at the point. Was this like gradual over time? Like did something in particular happen that made you say like I have to change my priorities, or I want to change my priorities? Like how did that happen?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'm not entirely sure, and I have some thoughts around it. I think before I started, quote unquote, my first business, and then before I joined Basti's business, I think I had a very scarce mindset around business ideas. I thought yeah, I was like, okay, what's a good idea? But finding and identifying ideas and learning around business models, that's I can teach that to anyone. I can teach you to come up with 100 business ideas within one day, and not kidding, just by opening up your mind and thinking around a certain framework. And I think once you've had a look at a couple of business ideas, oh, yeah, anyone can come up with 100 ideas. Like an event is a business idea. I can do 100 events for different target groups. For farmers, I could do an event for artists. I can do an event for, like Basti, for people that want to walk 100 miles or 100 kilometers.
Yeah,
So all of that is the event business model. So just by understanding that, I can come up with 100 event ideas in a day if I really push myself. Then if I know, oh, I can sell products, anything we see is a product, or anything man-made is something that someone is probably producing and selling. So they must be making a profit. Otherwise, they stop doing that, right?
yeah,
So in the beginning, I thought my mindset around identifying ideas was very scarce, and I didn't see a lot of business ideas. And thus, I was just like, anything that I can think could make me a profit, I want to do, to first be free for myself, to have more control over the direct direction of my life by gaining the control over my time. And that
yeah,
was that was and continues to be quite important for me. But once that was solved, and then also once I saw that, what, there are business ideas a dime a dozen. It's easy. Then it just makes sense to me to think about, okay, which ideas can work and are also useful to the planet, to society. Yeah, I think that might be one of the big shifts. That's one. And then the second was that for the last probably 13, 14, 15 years, for the most part, I had quite a big flexibility over my time, because this one business provided cash flow and we automated it, even with ecotoiletten. Not all the time. And a lot of the time, I assumed more of a consulting role. And my two co founders ran the business as CEOs. So, yeah, again, time flexibility. So that allows me to think and look at other things. I think about, okay, how can we build a team around that? And yeah, so that it frees up my time again, and I can maybe identify some ways in which I can leverage my time differently
yeah.
than if I had to take care of all the operational things. Yeah, and who knows, that might change, and then maybe my focus shifts. But with that time at hand, and with seeing a ton of opportunities, my question is like, why not do something that is helpful to others? That would be, yeah, unreasonable for me, seeing how much purpose and impact and finding myself in my work matters to me. Yeah, it's just a very joyful activity for me. And it gave me the flexibility to, to have all these learnings. And now I think if I had to start from scratch, I I think I could find impactful opportunities where I think, oh, that's impactful to other people or to the planet, and I can still generate a profit from it. I can still build the business in a way that, I have the personal freedom that I want, while also doing something that I connect with on a purpose level.
I see. I see. And what is inner work, and how did you kind of arrive at this concept of inner work?
Yeah. Again, Basti, oh my goodness, this guy, I owe him so much, you know. so, so I think in the beginning, he gave me around 2011, he gave me books from Eckhart Tolle and one book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, or The Peaceful Warrior, I think, by Dan Millman. And reading these books really, I think that was the first time I actually thought about or came in touch with mindfulness, you know, being in the present moment, actually noticing where am I? Okay. And starting to notice sensations in the body and become more aware to that. So I was quite fascinated by that. And it opened up this new inner work play field for me. And I started practicing meditation, um, trying to be more present and trying to let that flow into the interactions I had with people. Um, so I think that was one of the starting points. Then at some point I came across nonviolent communication. I was in a partnership, you know, where it's like we're just, you know, always butting heads, you know, there was a lot of tension there. So I was like, okay, this is not fun unless we figure something out. And I came across nonviolent communication. And wow, this relationship was such a blessing in disguise, you know, in all our fights, because I could learn to not defend myself, you know, to just listen, to be empathic, you know, to have this empathy and to listen for the emotions and the needs of the other person. So that became my training ground and also the training ground for my then partner, I think, you know, so we were both just listening to nonviolent communication and trying to find common ground. So I think that was already a very, that was a good part of the inner work, and transforming it from, oh, I'm just all Zen in myself to, okay, how can I use this in relationships? How can I also communicate that, you know, and make it more real in interactions with other people? And then on my 30th birthday, or close before, I got a call from one of my co-founders that our one business was almost dead, you know, that we had been out of money. And on my 30th birthday, I was on a flight from Las Vegas back to Germany because he said, Thomas, you got to come now. You know, we have to do something. I think we are done, but please come and support us full time, you know. And sitting on that plane on my 30th birthday, I just took that as a signal. Okay, I must have missed something here. Let me see what I can change in my thinking and
Yeah.
how I have contributed to that situation. And I think, you know, I just took that as a sign from the universe, in one way or another, something that an event that I had not foreseen, because just a month before we had like 100,000 in the bank. I was like, oh no, we're good. You know, we're going to just grow this thing and live happily ever after. So this event was so unforeseen for me. And then sitting on that plane on my 30th birthday, I thought, okay, that is a sign to wake up and reevaluate how I'm operating. And I stumbled across quite a number of things once I opened my mind and tried to identify how I had just contributed in big or small ways to that situation. Oh, and then I could see a number of them. I was arrogant, you know, I was totally driven by growth, comparing myself to others. I made bad business decisions because I was in such a hurry, in such a rush to grow the
Yeah.
business to some vanity metric of, oh, let's reach 1 million revenue, you know, two, whatever it is. And all of that ideally before my 30th birthday, you know. So understanding that, and seeing that was like, oh, okay, I'm not saying I'm not taking the whole responsibility for what has happened, and I think, and who knows, you know, if I had been in a different state of mind, maybe that could have never happened, because if I had been more focused on not pushing it quickly, but looking at our unit economics, you know, maybe
Yeah.
then this situation would not have come about. If I had been honest with saying, you know, that growth that we tried to achieve is not realistic. You know, otherwise we have to dump our prices so low that we won't make a margin. let's shift our strategy. That would have meant to communicate something different to co-founders, to the team, to the investors. And I was just not in the state of mind to do that. I was like, no, we have to reach our target. But we don't, it's not true. That was just a story that I
Yeah.
believed. Anyhow, in the aftermath of that, I was like, okay, let me reevaluate. And then I came across this a program. It's called inquiry-based stress reduction, or the work of Byron Katie. And I just signed up to one of the workshops. I listened to one of the interviews on a podcast, and people, they had such stressful thoughts when they entered this process. Like, for example, I need more money. I'm not good enough. My business partner should respect me more. All these ideas and thoughts around the world, around others, around themselves that were messing with their happiness. And I could see that through very simple questions, and the work is like a meditation, they became much clearer. Oftentimes, their perspective shifted totally from, they could see that they don't need more money. And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that they cannot get more or work towards that. But the truth is, in this moment, when I'm having the stressful thought, I need more money. That's not true. I'm sitting here with you, talking to you. So we through that, listening to the podcast and the work, I could see that we're telling ourselves so many stressful stories that then leads to very stressful lives, or a lot of stressful perception. And the work is one tool that you can reevaluate that through this meditation, through this inquiry process. And I signed up for the school for the work of Byron Katie for 9 days, and was absolutely life changing. Um, and yeah, then it became like almost a daily practice for me, to identify my own stressful thoughts and that I have. And in the beginning, it was all the big things in life that were unresolved, that cluttered my mind. Things from the childhood, things with partners, then I kind of cleaned up with them, by investigating into that. Is that actually true? My girlfriend should behave differently, is that, to identify that that thought is stressing me, and then to take it through 4 questions of the work. You can go to thework.com and look at the questions. It's all free there. So I applied that to all my perceived challenges in life, and then I noticed at some point, I don't think I have any problem anymore.
Yeah.
And then it became more granular. Then I could say, you know what? I thought this thought is actually helpful, but I noticed that it has a stressful component, you know? Um, so maybe I used to think that maybe a little bit of stress is good. I need stress to get motivated, let's say, I
Yeah.
think that was a belief that I had subconsciously held. And, investigating into that, are you open to hearing the 4 questions? Then I can take you through this in a very
Yeah.
quick
100%.
kind of way.
Let's do it.
All right. All right. So there are 4 questions in the work. So the first question is it true? So let's say my stressful thought is, um, I need stress to be motivated, right? Okay. And then if I can identify that thought, that sometimes it's driving me or ruling my life. And when I believe that thought, I'm stressed, or I create situations that stress me because I think that is what I need to get motivated, then I would just write down that thought. I need stress to get motivated. And then the first question is, I need stress to get motivated. Is that true? That's the first question in the work. And the answer to a yes or no question is either a yes or no. Is it true? Yes or no? Is that true? I need stress to get motivated? You know, I'm not so sure anymore. And let me just say my answer is yes. Yeah, I think I need stress to get motivated. All right, then if the answer to the first question is a yes, then you go to the second question, which is, can you absolutely know that that's true? Can I absolutely know that it's true that I need stress to get motivated? You know what? I cannot be 100% sure. So my answer is no. Well, that's interesting to see for me. And the third question is, how do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? And again, I'm just trying to understand, okay, how do I react? What happens when I believe the thought I need stress to get motivated? I create stressful situations. I don't plan very well. I leave things until the last minute. I stress myself. Yeah, also what happens is I wait and defer and delay. Then I stress myself. I push through, and then I fall into a hole because I'm totally tired, totally burnt out, and it's like I'm not in balance. That is what I can see.
Yeah.
when I when I operate with that thought. And also when I do that, I negate all the things that happen and that I do and that I do feel motivation for when I'm not stressed. I just don't see them. I just live by this mantra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is what I can see. I can also see that when I believe that thought, then I don't tackle the things, even though they occupy my mind. I see the
Yeah.
deadline, but I'm not tackling it yet. The stress is not high. So like, I'm not even enjoying my free time. So it's already, the thoughts are rolling. I should do that. I should do that. I tell myself these I should stories. Then I punish myself for not doing what I think I should do, waiting for the final stress, until I cannot take it anymore. Tackle it. So that is how I react. That is what happens, for example, when I believe that thought. So that is what could be my personal answer to that third question. And the fourth question is, who would you be without that thought? Okay, who would I be without the thought? I need stress to get motivated. Well, I would be much freer. I wouldn't wait for stress. I would maybe have a more open mind and see if I can find motivation or something playful around things that I want to do early
Yeah.
on. Mm. Maybe I structure my work better and ask myself, what could be a simple first step that I can do with motivation and without any stress? It opens up a new mental map in my mind. Um, I would stop telling other people the story that I'm not stressed enough yet to do that. I would stop telling my story of, oh, I am this person that needs stress to do anything, you know, without believing it. I wouldn't tell everyone that and reinforce that story. So maybe that's something that I could see, and I could see how that could bring more freedom and more peace into my existence. Yeah. And then the final part to this work is to turn it around. So if the original stressful thought was, I need stress to get motivated, the exact opposite would be, I don't need stress to get motivated. And the turnaround is just a way to experience the opposite of a stressful thought and see if that could be true for me. And it's just like, I refer to it as trying on shoes. I'm just seeing, is that actually true for me? Can I find examples, authentic examples that are true for me? And if not, then I say, oh, that turnaround doesn't work for me, but I approach it with an open mind and curiosity. So I don't need stress to get motivated. Could that be true or truer? Can I find examples for that? I can totally see that. For example, when I read about Ali in Pakistan and youth-led change making, there was no stress. There was just pure fascination and pure
Yeah.
joy and curiosity. And I just wrote them this email. There was zero stress. I was just pumped. I felt like, oh, I want to know more about that. That is one specific example. Well, you know what? I don't need stress to go and buy groceries. I don't wait until my fridge is totally empty. I just do that. So I can see that that does not apply to everything. No? And a third example, I don't need stress to get motivated. Well, when I go to the gym, for example, I enjoy that. I can
Yeah.
enjoy that process, and I just like to put on my sneakers and go there, for example. So this is always about exploring for yourself what is true or truer for you, and to see if you can find something. So you can do this with all the stressful thoughts that come up in your head and that you think, I seem to be thinking that. Then to write that down and to use these 4 questions to dive deeper. And of course, if you want help, then you can also have someone facilitate you, which can be helpful sometimes, especially if you're new to that process, to to also stick to answering the questions and not going drifting off in other stories. Yeah.
That's fascinating. I never heard about that. This is the first time I'm exposed to this idea, but intuitively it makes a lot of sense to me. I can also relate a lot with much of what you said, like about stress, etc. So thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate that. I think the people that listen are also likely relating to that. So that was a very good one.
Yeah, you're most welcome. And for me, it's the fastest way to change, because if my thinking changes, if I can see that something that I thought was true is actually not true for me, and the whole world could disagree, but it's not true for me anymore, then that thought, that belief doesn't hold that much power over me anymore. And then it's much easier to change my actions and my behavior than trying to change my behavior, even though my thinking is still the same. For me, that's
Yes.
total 80
Yeah.
20 of personal development, and it could literally take you 5 minutes of this inquiry process, and you come out with a different worldview. And from that different worldview and understanding of yourself, a different kind of behavior in the world is just natural. It just makes more sense, with what you discovered in yourself. So, I love that. And I really think that it can be a shortcut to more peace, more effectivity often. Yeah, yeah, all of that good stuff.
I agree. Thomas, what's the best way for people to contact you, to get in touch with you?
Yeah. Or you can send me an email to team@thomasjakel.de. So feel free to put that in the show notes or share it in whichever way you want. Also through LinkedIn, that's a good way. And if they write that they come through you, George, then I'm more than happy to reply to anything. It will be
Thank you.
priority. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. It was an awesome chat, Thomas. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to have this chat. I learned a lot. Hopefully, the listeners did as well. And I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
absolutely. Such a privilege, George. Thank you so much.